what we found in regards to productivity was that we had done some studies, specifically Ralph Converse and Larry Goodwin and Gordon Vick had done some studies in stores. And out of that, almost like an industrial engineering Thirdly measurement, they had determined what amount of savings was going to be available from like 8 or 9 different areas. Mm-hmm. And the biggest one, half of all the savings, was going to be improved checkout speed. The only problem with that is that checkers are human, and they know what speed they're supposed to work at. They inherently know. And just because you give them a different kind of a checkout doesn't mean that it's going to be faster. Now, IBM also did something to make it difficult, and that is the field engineering division was terrified that their printer was going to wear out printing all those items, and so they specified how fast you could print something, which meant it ended up being a lag between the time that the checker scanned the item and actually got a beep, but she was really listening for the printer to print. And then half a second later go, well, that's a half a second we lost. And it didn't come back. And then she reached for the next item. So it was an interesting challenge, okay?
So you're telling me that most of the cashiers are relying on the printer noise?
In those days, most of the cashiers relied on the printer noise to tell them the last item had been accepted and go to the next one.
Interesting.
Because they knew that was on the register.
Right.
Okay. So Wegmans had been a very good start for scanning. If there was a chain that was undervalued in this whole process, it was the Wegmans chain in Rochester, New York. They were fantastic. So I went up there and met with a salesman, a guy by the name of Eric Lunkenheimer, and we went out to that first scanning store, and you could see it. You could absolutely see it. And so we went back to their headquarters, which is right next to the airport in Rochester, and we had a meeting with Bob Wegman, who was on the ad hoc committee he really contributed a lot to this program. And Danny, his son, and some of the other staff around there. And we confessed that, yeah, we could see that productivity was not what it was supposed to be. And what we would do, there had been other chains that had come back. In fact, Tom Wilson from McKinsey had come back and said, you know, this has become a big industry issue. There's just not the productivity there's supposed to be in going to these kinds of things. And what can you do about it? And we initially had planned to do something with Giant Food, but they were having trouble getting a time to do it and all that sort of stuff. And Wegman said, hey, whatever you need. And I said, well, what I'd like to do then is come up here and put a camera in the ceiling and videotape checkout. And then we'll go back and analyze it, and we'll come back and give you a full report. So we went up there and did probably 9 hours of watching checkout under fairly reasonable times. We would, there was one check lane we used, so people knew when they got assigned to that check lane, something funny was going on. But you'd wait until the girl would start, you know, adjusting her blouse or giving some smart aleck remark back to the customer, because there's a lot of banter that goes on between customers and checkers that know each other.
Sure, sure.
And so we wait to that time, then we turn the tape recorder on, and we tape for about an hour. And then we take her off the lane and put someone else on the lane. And so we did about 9 hours, or maybe a little more, and we brought it back and we looked at it, and it showed that you weren't getting the productivity you should. And they had also been an early adopter of something called the ISA system, which was a key entry system, had a very clever keyboard which was designed so that you didn't have to look at it. You could feel which key you were on, and checkers learned to touch key on the ISA system using one hand. Now, Kroger and everyone else who were scanning advocates believed scanning would always beat ESIS because they were two-handed in scanning.
Right.
You can only use one in ESIS. But we went back up to Wegmans and we videotaped ESIS and we videotaped NCR electromechanicals, and ESIS was faster than we were. That was a little tough.
Sure.
So we went through this whole thing. Now, I was involved in some other projects too at the same time, so I was kind of doing the analysis, putting it together. We showed it to Wilson at McKinsey. We showed it back to Wegmans. I came back and we were trying to think of what can we do to fix this problem. And I got a call from the salesman saying, Wegmans is throwing us out. What does that mean? Scared me. And he said, no, he just wants you to go away. They'll fix the problem. And so we went away, and I kept doing some of the other things. And about 6 weeks later, I got another call from the salesman saying, they say the problem's fixed, bring the video camera back. They want you to measure them again. And so I went back to the same stores, the Fairport store, which was their first scanning store. Went back to the same store, same check lane, put the camera back in, started going, I don't know if we went through the same checkers or not, but we went through the whole thing, did 9 hours. And it was an interesting experience. One of the interesting parts of the experience, which is a telling story, was that we were set up in, we set a VCR and a monitor up in the server room where the controller was, and that was locked. Okay, so normally no one went in there. It was right next to the office. But we were standing there watching this thing, and the store manager liked to come in and stand there and watch these things. And then all of a sudden the head cashier, who checks also, she's also a clerk, comes back with a tray, and she sees us in there. And she looks and she says, oh, is that Sally or something, or who like that? And he wheeled around on notes and says, yes, what could she be doing more productively? And the girl, blah, 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 said something back, didn't make any difference. Indelibly imprinted in her forehead was, I know what he wants. And that was the secret. The entire secret to getting productivity was to get the message in from management to do that. Mm-hmm. And this is what we want. And they actually broke those girls from waiting for the printer down to accepting the beep.
Right,
That's
right,
the point.
Right.
So if you hear the beep, the next item should be on its way. And the printer just did its thing. They weren't paying attention to it anymore. Mm-hmm. And it worked. Yeah. It was great. And the productivity came back.
That's interesting. I'm kind of I'm saying a favorite kind of a guy that says, hey, Wegmans is a good store, because I lived in Syracuse for a long time, and Wegmans was part of
Syracuse. You were one of the guys that was going to
yeah.
analyze those tapes too.
Right, exactly.